since the dawn of creation, long before Seiya donned the Pegasus armor. Before the 12 zodiac temples and the holy war against Hades, only the primordial cosmos existed. From it came the first gods and their endless battle for dominance in the human world. On this journey, we will explore the vast chronology of the Saint Seiya universe, starting in the mythological era, passing through the forgotten holy wars, the rise of Athena as the protector of humanity, and finally, the emergence of the legendary Gold Saints. Hello, Knights and Amazons. Welcome to Always Wanted to Know. As you know, I am Wes, and today we're going to go through the entire classic chronology of Knights of the Zodiac, understanding the origin of the story from the mythological era all the way to the current chapters of the manga, where the Zeus Saga is about to begin. Go ahead and click like because this video is awesome. Let us get into it. Saint Seiya's story begins in the primordial void. Everything originates from the big will, the great will, an immense cosmic force, sometimes called the supreme virtue, which in its highest state is the ninth sense. It was this force that started the Big Bang, flooding the darkness of the universe with light and matter, creating stars, planets, and ultimately life in the cosmos that pulses within every being. Almost as soon as creation began, the first and most powerful zodiac god emerged. He is Kronos. He is not Kronos the Titan, but rather the very personification of time and eternity. His appearance marks the beginning of temporal reality in the Sea of Dimensions, this being the dimension that transcends linear time. Thousands of years passed until heaven and earth took shape. They are represented by the primordial gods Uranus, the sky, and Gaia, the earth. They are the parents of Kurumada's mythology and gave birth to the first divine beings, including the 12 Titans, beings of immeasurable power who became the pillars of creation. Thus, we have the first war of the universe and one of the most intense, which was the rebellion of Kronos the Titan, son of Uranus. Dissatisfied with his father's rule, Kronos the Titan led the revolt. The battle became cosmic, and the Titan, using his divine scythe, Megas Drepanon, defeated Uranus and claimed the universe's throne. Under the rule of the Titans, humanity that had emerged on Earth lived through an era of tyranny. The Titans demanded worship and treated humans like slaves. This oppression lasted until three men in different eras and places awakened a higher level of consciousness, the ninth sense. These masters of the cosmos ascended to divine power and rebelled against the Titans. They started the war known as the Titanomachy, marking the first time that human strength, the cosmos, challenged and defeated the divine beings. According to the Knights of the Zodiac Hypermyth, humans who became gods include Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. But of course, several legends and ideas from Kurumada that he added to the Hypermyth were modified over time. Therefore, in the Saga of Zeus, Kurumada might give a different origin to the Olympian gods. What I am reporting here is simply what was created by the author in the past. However, many ideas were set aside or were changed throughout the entire story. Continuing with the fall of the Titans, the Olympian gods, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, consolidated power and divided the world. Zeus took the kingdom of the skies, becoming the ruler of Olympus. Poseidon took the underwater kingdom, and Hades took the underworld. The earth was declared the community of all the gods, although Zeus was the supreme ruler. And this period of peace allowed the gods to have their offspring, including Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom. Tired of his rule on Earth and seeing that order had been established, Zeus withdrew from the earthly realm, returning to Olympus and leaving his daughter Athena as the protector of humanity. To help her, he gave her Nike, the goddess of victory, that golden staff that stays with Athena, whose power guarantees absolute victory. And he also gave Athena her Kamui. It is said that the Kamuis were lost in the history of Saint Seiya. However, many believe that Athena's armor is the goddess's Kamui, in a weakened form, not awakened with all its power. This distancing of Zeus, who was first said to have stayed on Olympus, was changed in the Next Dimension saga, where Apollo reveals that Zeus was not on Olympus and was certainly somewhere else in the universe. However, this distancing of Zeus was also the signal for other gods to try to usurp the dominion of Earth, starting the cycle of conflicts known as the Holy Wars. Poseidon, Emperor of the Seas, was the first to covet the Earth. He believed that humanity, with its cruelty and greed, deserved to be purified by a flood. For this purpose, Poseidon used the advanced technology of his submerged city, Atlantis, and the celestial metal called orichalcum, brought by meteorites, to forge powerful armors called scales. These being the sacred garments of his warriors, the marinas, Poseidon began his attack, and Athena was forced to respond. It was at this moment of desperation that, under the guidance of the goddess, the alchemists and craftsmen from the continent of Mu allied themselves with the sanctuary. Using Geminian metal, as well as orichalcum and stardust, they used the legendary Pandora's box technique. They created the first armors for their protectors, the Saint Knights. This war against Poseidon was fierce, but with the help of her first knights, Athena managed to seal Poseidon's spirit in the sacred amphora, putting an end to the first great conflict. And in the period of peace that followed, the sanctuary in Greece was fortified using divine knowledge and high alchemy. The 12 zodiac houses were built centuries later. These are the temples meant to protect the goddess and the statue of Athena, which is her armor. Only warriors with extremely high cosmos, the gold saints, guardians of this place, and could cross them. Centuries later, Earth was devastated by the terrifying era of the giants. These were the giants, monstrous beings immune to the conventional power of the gods, feeding on human blood. This was one of the darkest periods in history, with this war being known as the Gigantomachy. Athena's peace was again disrupted, this time by Ares, the feared god of war, and his warriors. The berserkers attacked the sanctuary, and this war is described in the Hypermyth as the most brutal and bloody of all the holy wars, surpassing in carnage even the battles against Poseidon and Hades. The intervention of Athena and her knights was crucial to repel Ares and his armies. All these events, from the Big Will to the defeat of Ares, are part of the Hypermyth, the legendary foundation of Saint Seiya. They are considered semi-canonical, as they were established with the direct involvement of Masami Kurumada, setting the stage for the main stories that would come later. The fact that the Hypermyth mentions elements like the Sepuris and the Hades Saga even before they were published in the main manga reinforces its importance in the canonical work. In addition to being material that serves as the basis for several Saint Seiya spin-offs, the main one being the Lost Canvas Saga. Ares, the god of war, hid in the underworld. From there, the first holy war against Hades began, a mythological war where the Pegasus saint struck the god of the underworld, thus beginning Hades' tradition of keeping his body in the Elysian fields and choosing a human as his vessel. After centuries of conflicts and periods of peace, we arrive at the most detailed and documented point in history, where the canonical narratives and spin-offs intersect. The 18th century holy war against Hades occurred after the sanctuary had exceptional warriors. The Lost Canvas manga explores the stories of the Gold Saints who lived in this era, and also in previous generations, such as Crest of Aquarius and Itaia of Libra. The guidance of Lost Canvas also shows the Gold Saints on their peace missions, ensuring that Athena's order was maintained. And in the year 1743, the reincarnation of Hades and the resurrection of his 108 specters wearing the Sepuris marked the beginning of the most important holy war. However, the canon of the 18th century holy war takes place in the Next Dimension Saga, which is the version written by Kurumada and therefore the main canon of the classic saga. The conflict occurred when the host of Hades was alone, the young painter who was a friend of the Pegasus saint of that time. The young Tenma of Pegasus became a saint outside Athena's sanctuary and was trained by Suikyo, the former cup saint, who later becomes the judge of the underworld, Garuda. In the sanctuary, the order of protection was maintained by a group of legendary gold saints. Among them, Libra Doko stood out as the future master, and Elder Shion of Ares as the future Grand Master of the Sanctuary, Ox of Taurus, who is the predecessor of Aldebaran. Abel and Cain of Gemini represent the sign's duality, while Zo of Capricorn wields Excalibur as a katana, and Kaiser of Leo holds the Lion King's heart. Sejima of Virgo, among history's strongest knights who gave up speech, and Gestalt of Sagittarius, who thought he was a centaur. Other knights include Death Toll of Cancer, Cardinali of Pisces, Hicarlet of Scorpio, Mystoria of Aquarius, and Odysseus of Ophiuchus, who is the 13th Gold Knight. The Holy War of 1743 culminated with the sealing of the twin gods Hypnos, the god of sleep, and Thanatos, the god of death. And finally, the sealing of the spirit of Hades in the underworld. Of all the knights of Athena who fought in this war, only two survived this carnage: Doko of Libra and Chion of Ares. Doko was entrusted by Athena to guard the Rosan waterfall in the five ancient peaks in China. He was tasked with guarding the tower, sealing the 108 evil stars of the specters. Doko had the Misopethaminos, which forced him to survive until the next holy war. And Chion was appointed the new Grand Master of the Sanctuary, tasked with rebuilding the order and preparing the next generation of knights. The famous manga and anime, The Lost Canvas, tells an alternative version of this Holy War of 1743, taking place in a parallel universe. In this version, Hades' host was the kind Alone, childhood friend of Tenma of Pegasus, and Athena's reincarnation, Sasha. Although the premise is very similar to Next Dimension, the events are very different. We also have completely different gold saints and stories as well. That is why the Lost Canvas saga is considered a parallel universe, being an official story, but not part of the canon. The story focuses on the deep bond between the trio. The conflict is marked by the drama and sacrifice of the Gold Saints. For example, Cancer, Manigold, Pisces, Albafica, and Asmita Virgo. They fought heroically against the armies of Hades and against Alone's celestial painting, the Lost Canvas. The ending of this version also leads to the sealing of Hades, but with different outcomes and destinies for the characters, including the sacrifice of the Gold Saints. And returning to the canonical saga, after 1743, there followed a period of peace that lasted more than 200 years. Under the leadership of Chion, the sanctuary was rebuilt, and the Order of Athena's saints prospered in secret, preparing for the inevitable return of the forces of evil. An unusual event shaped the next generation in the 20th century. A celestial comet collided with the sanctuary, and from it emerged the first newborn, destined to become a gold saint. This was Saga of Gemini. Strangely, instead of a single baby, they were twins, Saga and Kanan. Also, there was a third baby, an evil spirit made by the goddess Kur. This spirit merged with Saga, creating the evil personality we know. This event is described in the manga Saint Seiya Origin, which introduced two powerful souls under the Gemini constellation. This event prepared for the tragedy that would shake the sanctuary. In this generation, Chion remained Grand Master, and Doko continued as Spectre Tower's guardian. The sanctuary was preparing for the birth of the new Athena and for the formation of the 88 Knights. They were needed to protect the goddess and Earth, until the fate of the twin brothers determined this place's future, starting the main saga's protagonist's era at the end of the 20th century. Then we learned about Seiya and his friends' entire journey. They fought against the Black Knights, the Silver Knights, the Gold Knights, and then faced the gods Poseidon and Hades. This ends up leaving Seiya in a vegetative state, and the knight would die due to the curse of Hades' sword. Thus, the Next Dimension saga begins with Athena and the Bronze Knights. Going back to the past, they learn the stories of the Gold Knights of that era and manage to remove the curse of Hades' sword. Returning to the future, they are judged by Apollo, the sun god and Athena's brother, who erases their memories and those of the knights. However, after the end of the Next Dimension saga, we have a chapter called Saint Seiya 10, where Athena Saori regains her memories and visits the sanctuary. And now, on December 19th, we will have the continuation of this chapter, where Saori will wear her armor, thus beginning the Olympus saga, the long-awaited Zeus Saga. Comment below what your theories are for this saga. Thanks for watching to the end. See you next time. Burn your cosmos to infinity.